Good evening, respected teacher and my friend. My name is Professor Rohit Kautkar. I am from Sandip Institute of Polytechnic, Nashik, and today I am going to cover topic how we can connect a PHP script to the database. So these are some outline that we will try to cover in today's discussion. So first of all, we will try to see what are prerequisites to understand this topic. Then we will introduce the actual topic. Then we will see what are steps that will lead to the connection of PHP script to the database. And at last we will see what are various functions to achieve same thing. And at last we will reach to the conclusion next. So in order to achieve the learning outcome like develop PHP script that will communicate with the database, we have chosen this particular topic, and we are confident that at the end of this particular discussion, our students will be able to do the same thing. Now these are some prerequisites that we should know in order to understand the same topic. So basic concepts like database, SQL, RDBMS concept and PHP script. So do you have Google account or Facebook account? Yes? Yes. So have you ever think that where our username and password are getting stored? Anyone know? So if you try to Google or if you try to drill out it, you will come with the answer database. So what is database? So database is a software which is used for storing information that can be used by web application. So as we are discussing how PHP scripts can communicate with database, so we will have database like MySQL which will be responsible for storing and retrieving information. Next basic thing we should know, that is SQL. So what is SQL? So SQL is a language which is known as structured query language and which is used for communication from script to the database. So you can send queries, you can retrieve data from database. So that is just for making the communication happen between the script and database. And some basic RDBMS concepts like table, attributes, tuple, rows, all these things that we are assuming you have learned already in second year, and in last lecture also we discussed same thing. And obviously what is PHP script? So PHP script is a group of statements that are from PHP and that will be executed on a server. So these are some prerequisites that we'll need to understand the further concepts. Now introduction. So in introduction we will try to understand that PHP is basically used for developing web applications which will be dynamic nature and which will be available on a server. And web application may need to store and retrieve data as we discussed, like username, password, your account information, your preferences, your browsing information and so on. List is quite big. So databases are used for storing and retrieving information that may be used by our databases. And MySQL is the best choice in order to store and retrieve information because it is open source and it is most widely used by famous companies like Google, Facebook, Amazon and so many. So and PHP really shines with MySQL. So reason is that both are open source. So PHP is also open source as well as MySQL is also open source. And we don't have to pay anything to anyone in order to use PHP or MySQL. That's why best choice is MySQL. We also have other vendors of databases, but we are going with MySQL in order to store and managing our web application information. And now we will see what are steps, what are major steps we will try to follow in order to establish a connection between our PHP script and our database. So there are 4 major steps. First step is establishing a connection with a database server. Next step is choose a database with which you want to work, with which you want to fire query, from where you want to get result. Next one, fire some queries by using SQL language as we discussed. And last one, if there are some results from server, so process that result, collect that result and display it to the user according to proper format in which user can understand. So these are 4 major steps that we will try to achieve throughout our particular discussion as we will progress. These are 4 steps which are diagrammatically shown. First step is establish a connection, so that will lead to connect to the database server. Next one, select the database with which you want to work, because there may be possibility that multiple databases may be available on server. So we must have to specify with what database we have to work. Third one, fire some query. So using SQL statement, you may write a statement that will lead to generation of some result from database server. And at last, if some results are generated by database server, so we will try to display, we will try to process them. So if you observe, there are 4 steps. First one is establishing a connection to the database server. Next one, selection of database with which you want to work. Third one, fire some query using some SQL language statement. And last one, if some results are generated, then process that result. Process results. So in order to achieve these 4 steps which are leading to the connection of PHP script to the database, we will try to see what are various built-in functions that will allow us to do the same thing. So this is basic working diagram of DB connection, how it will happen. So on client, our script will be running, which will communicate with the server, which will be Apache as PHP server-side scripting, all of you know, and that server will communicate with the database server, where our MySQL server, MySQL database server will be available, and where all data will be reside. So request and response will be happen by using some web browser, which will use protocol like HTTP, and language, as we know, SQL, that is structured query language. So this is a basic working diagram how DB connection will work. Now step 1, connect database to the PHP script. That is what establishing a connection. So in order to establish a connection, we have built-in MySQL function, that is MySQL_connect. Its syntax is MySQL connect. It requires 3 parameters. First one is server name. Next one is username. And last one is password. Here, while configuring, there are 2 choices for server configuration. One is locally and another one is remotely. So we are assuming the scenario where our server is configured as a locally, means our client, that is browser, and our server, that is database server, will be available on same machine. So first scenario we are assuming. So over there, if you observe example, MySQL connect localhost, that is first parameter, username, that is Rohit, and password, that is also Rohit. So this statement will establish a connection of PHP script to the database server. Next, step 2, select a database. So in order to select a database, or in order to make selection of particular database from database server, we will use function MySQL select DB, which require only single parameter, that is what the name of database. So here, if you observe its syntax says that it requires only single parameter, that is name of database, and in example you can see my database name is sample. So it will lead to select a sample database from MySQL database server. Third step is firing query. So in order to fire query, we will use function MySQL_query. It requires a single statement that will define what data you want to retrieve or what data you want to get from database. So that is what actually the query text and connection identifier that we had get from this particular establishing a connection. So query text may be any SQL statement that will specify what data we want to retrieve. So in example you can see select star from sample. So it will lead to retrieve all records from sample table, and connection identifier is MySQL. And process result. So in order to process result, we will have function MySQL_fetch_array, and it require only single parameter, that is result identifier. So result identifier, that is written from the MySQL_query function. So you can see particular example MySQL fetch array, and result is a result identifier that is written from third step firing query by using MySQL_query function. So this is how we can process our result. So MySQL fetch array, which is available within while loop, which will continuously iterate our particular records up to the last. So if there are n records, so all n records will be fetched using while loop, and you can see that EMP ID, EMP name, these all are fields from particular database. Example. So if you observe, so first statement is starting of PHP script. Next statement, what next statement can do? Which is first step? Establishing a connection. So that is achieved in second particular statement. MySQL connect localhost. Sample is a username. Sample is a password. Here we are checking if step connection is established successfully, we will display the message accordingly. Else we will display that there is an error. At statement 11, we are selecting a database. So we will conclude that this particular topic covers how a PHP script can communicate with the database and what major steps we have to take in order to achieve the same. So as a conclusion, I will say 4 major steps you have to go through in order to connect a PHP script to the database. First one is selecting or establishing a connection, then selecting database, firing query and process result. And in order to do same thing, we have various built-in MySQL functions which will allow to do same thing. Thank you. Any questions?
As it is an open source database, so can our Google and Facebook and all this data can be hacked?
No, it is open source, means it is freely available without any cost, and license will be available at zero cost. That is what it means. It doesn't mean that anyone come and anyone can hack or anyone can steal. There is a strong, what you can say, security features are available with MySQL server. So as it is used by Facebook and all major companies like Google, so it having strong security features. So
it is not impossible to hack.
No, you can't say that because a lot of challenging people are coming into this field, and they are trying to create big challenges in front of the giant company like Google, Facebook. Still, some improvements are needed in security, the particular area or domain of MySQL server.
Is the database related to some cloud concept?
What is question?
The database storage is related to cloud concept.
Sir, it will come in picture when you are storing whatever data you want to store on cloud using RDBMS concept only. Otherwise, it will stay behind, it will not come in picture.
Feedback?
Gaining attention is very good. Concept appropriateness is excellent. Delivery point of view, all points are excellent. Overall impression is excellent.
I can say you have a very bright future as a teacher.
Yes, sir.
You have all components as a you will become very good teacher. Because the way you are explaining the flawless things, it was excellent. It was really good to watch. Very nice.
Thank you so much.